Hello, class. This is Demetrius Wilson, and we are now on Chapter 6 for Management 2. We'll be speaking about organization structure and design. Our learning outcomes for Chapter 6 are identify the basic elements of organizations, describe the bureaucratic perspective on organization design, identify and explain key situational influences or organizational design on organizational design. Describe the basic forms of organization design that characterize many organizations, and identify and describe emerging issues in organization design, right? So obviously talking about the organization and how they are designed. So, nice quote, paying $90 for torn jeans isn't that cool anymore, from that's an analyst on declining sales at Abercrombie Fitch. You have to think about what's in, what's not in, what's currently in, and going out. So, of course, need you to read that study on that company and get some, real life and real world perspective in terms of how your organization should be designed and what markets you should target. Talk about the basic elements of organizing throughout this chapter, one of which is a job specialization. So the degree to which the overall task of the organization is broken down and divided into smaller component parts, right? So if you only pound widget A into widget B, and that's all you do every day, all day, every day, then your job is very specialized. But maybe you pound A into B and then also B into C, then your job is not as specialized, but it's still within the same realm. So you have to know and understand, how specialized your job is and how specialized your job isn't. So for example, Walt Disney started his company, he did everything himself, wrote the cartoons, drew them, added character, voices, and then marketed them to theaters. At that time, that's when he was doing everything himself. But then obviously realized that you couldn't do everything yourself, and had to bring in additional employees and staff to do some of those other duties. Now, quite some time ago, I interviewed for this company, McMaster Car Supply Company. They did a great job of what you call a job rotation, in which you would be the receptionist, and you could be the salesperson, and you could work in the warehouse. Very good job. So basically, you're raising up through the ranks a bunch of mini managers, a bunch of mini directors and or VPs, because everybody knows every component of the business. So job rotation is an alternative to job specialization that involves systematically moving employees from one job to another. So I have employees that do A, B, C, D, E, and you do A for 6 months, now you're going to do B for the next 6 months, and the person who is doing B is now going to do C for 6 months, and the person who's doing E rotates back around to A. I like it a lot. Some companies encourage that, some companies don't. I know it can become very mundane in whatever position you're in if you're doing the same thing over and over again. Job enlargement. This is an alternative to job specialization that increases the total number of tasks that workers perform. So that just means we're going to enlarge your job scope. You were doing A, B, and C. Now you're going to do A, B, C, D, and E. Now what you have to look out for, in dealing with job enlargement is burnout, and, how much can that person truly handle? And that's a balancing act of managers to say, okay, I see they're at their limit. Let's, hold off and not give them any more responsibilities, or they can take on more responsibility. And sometimes your individual says, hey, I want that additional responsibility because I think that I can make a difference. If you look at Maytag, so many producers like Maytag washers and dryers are manufactured using job specialization and assembly line technology, right? Get on the assembly line, you're going to do specifically one thing. Bam, you hit widget A into widget B. While this approach promotes efficiency, it can also lead to monotony and worker boredom, right? Because if you're hitting A into B all day long, right, you better have like one great playlist on your iPhone, because it's going to become very boring. Job enrichment. This alternative to job specialization that attempts to increase both the number of tasks a worker does and the control the worker has over the job. So not only are we increasing your task, we're now increasing how much involvement and how much control you have over this particular task, so you really feel like it is truly your own. Job characteristics approach is a little bit more complex. This is alternative to job specialization that suggests that jobs should be diagnosed and improved along 5 core dimensions, taking into account both the worker, system, and employee preferences, right? So now we're saying we're going to have a job. We're not just going to say this is the way we always did it. We're going to say, look at this job and let's look at these 5 components and see if we can improve upon those. So number 1 will be skill variety, the number of things a person does in the job. Task identity, to the extent to which the worker does a complete or identifiable portion of the job, right? If you're the main subject matter expert and you do mostly everything, then it's yours. 3, task significance, the perceived importance of the task. Autonomy, the degree of control the worker has over how the work is performed, right? I may be over your shoulder saying you need to do it like this, 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 and this, or I could say this is the end result that I need, and I leave you alone to do your job. And then 5, feedback, the extent to which the worker knows how well the job is being performed. Some people don't know because they don't ever get any feedback from their manager and or supervisor. Work teams is an alternative to job specialization that allows an entire group to design the work system it will use to perform the interrelated set of tasks, right? So, hey, every organization doesn't have time to do this, but if you do, it's great. You take the people, this is a task at hand. I want you guys to formulate. Show me what design you're going to use. I look at the design. I say, good, stamp of approval. You guys mobilize and move out. Departmentalization, this is the process of grouping jobs according to some logical arrangement, right? So human resources department, accounting department, finance, accounting, just different departments, and it's logical. Everything in human resources, whether it be recruiting, selecting, performance evaluation, stuff like that, will be done in the human resources department. Everything having to do with accounting will be done in the accounting department. So you want to departmentalize all those different things. So this is a nice design for you guys to look at and review. So employee growth, need, and strength. Just wanted to show you that part at the bottom. Core dimensions of the job, the critical psychological states, and personal work outcomes. So skill variety, task identity, and task significance go into experience meaningfulness of work, right? Which leads into high internal work motivation, high quality work performance, and high satisfaction with the work, and low absenteeism and turnover. So if you're very involved, then it won't be a lot of turnover, a lot of absenteeism. Look at the feedback, follow the trail, goes from knowledge of the actual results of the work activities, goes to experience meaningfulness of the work, right? So you know what your job is, you know that you're doing it well, and now you feel like you're doing something that is very meaningful. All right, so just review that diagram. It's very good. Job characteristics approach to design provides a viable alternative to job specialization. 5 core job dimensions may lead to critical psychological states that in turn may enhance motivation, performance, and satisfaction while also reducing absenteeism and turnover. And that's the end goal, is that you want to come up with a favorable system, and you want to reduce the turnover, amount of people that leave, and you also reduce the absenteeism, amount of times that people call in sick, and not just calling sick because they're definitely ill or they're ill, have the flu or something like that, but calling sick because I want to go to the beach that day. Functional departmentalization is grouping jobs involving the same or similar activities, right? So if the things or tasks that you're completing are similar, then we're going to group them together and we're going to give them to one person. And obviously you should do some cross training so that there's another person to back up that person. Product departmentalization is grouping activities around products or product groups, right? So all these products are the same, so let's put them all in that department. Customer departmentalization, grouping activities to respond and interact with specific customers and or groups, right? So if this is our customer and there's a certain demographic, certain age group, then we're going to departmentalize what we do with them. So for example, it takes one set of skills to evaluate a balance sheet and lend $5 million for operating capital, and a different set of skills to evaluate an individual's creditworthiness and lend $40,000 for a new car. 2 totally different things, 2 totally different hats, 2 totally different wheelhouses. Location departmentalization is grouping jobs on the basis of defined geographic sites or areas, right? So because you're in this area, I'm going to have you report to this person and your function is going to fall under this area. And that definitely makes sense. The defined sites or areas may range in size from hemisphere to only a few blocks of a large city. Transportation companies, police departments, and the Federal Reserve Bank all use location departmentalization, which makes sense for them. Chain of command, which you definitely need to know. And then typically they say, hey, don't break the chain of command because, you go, like say I'm a manager, got director, I don't get along with director, and then there's a VP. If I go over that director to that VP, the VP is just going to come back to the director and tell them what you said to them. So, go up try and go your best to go up the chain of command, and follow that path, so you go about it the right way. I know sometimes they may be, uncomfortable conversations, but they can be managed. A clear and distinct line of authority among the positions in an organization. That is what the chain of command is. Span of management. You could also call it span of control, depends on what textbook you're looking at. The number of people who report to a particular manager, and some people say, hey, your span of control should not be beyond blank, right? Because they think that once you're get out too far, then you have too many people to manage and you don't end up managing anybody well. I know at one point, had close to in excess of 40 people, reporting directly. And sometimes, yeah, that can be too much, but it's not something that can't be done, but shouldn't be done for a very long period of time. I'll tell you that. So looking for that optimal span of management is what companies are really looking for. So authority, and there are different types of authority. So power that has been legitimized by the organization. So the organization said, I'm the manager, so I have power because the organization gives me that power. Now you could have different types of power, like charismatic power. You're very charismatic, so people follow you. All right, or you can have relationship power, that you have a good relationship with somebody and they follow you because of that type of power. Delegation is the process by which a manager assigns a portion of his or her total workload to others. So, there's some people that are super delegators, like I got 10 things to do. I got 10 people, bam, 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 everybody gets one. I'm going to my office, I'm going to kick my feet up. But other individuals know that there's some things that you should hold and manage and then probably teach and train someone how to do it. And as they get the hold of it, then maybe delegate it that way. But delegation is just how you do it. And, how much of those activities are you dishing out to your employees and or associates? Leading the way, delayering of a defense mechanism. So I want you guys to read that. As always, they're very interesting stories in the book. I will commend them for the textbook on the different types of stories that they select, because I do think that they, definitely give you a path and open up the window to, what happens in the real world. And, a lot of you guys have full-time jobs, and what happens out there. And that you can't get everything from the textbook, but a lot of that comes from experience combined with, that textbook knowledge. Decentralization and centralization, run along the same premise, but decentralization is the process of systematically delegating power and authority throughout the organization to middle and lower level managers, right? So if you're decentralized, you're saying, I'm going to give it to the east, to the Midwest, to the south, and to the west, right? As opposed to it being centralized, which it would just be in one place like the west. So centralization is a process of systematically retaining power and authority in the hands of higher level managers, right? So we're going to keep it up here. We're not going to dish out any of the power. We don't feel as if you guys are, are at that point yet where we want you really making those decisions. So at your service, a panel of your peers, as always. So I want you to read that as well. And then when you read these, don't just read through it and do the bare minimum. Read through it and then answer. Look at the comments and the questions on the 1, 2, 3, 4. It'll give you a great peek into the window of management and how things should go, right? Like as I said, the textbook talks about how it should go, not how it necessarily will go. Coordination is the process of linking activities of the various departments of the organization, right? So we want to coordinate, right? It goes to the claims department, or goes to implementation, they set it up. It goes back to the client sends it in, goes to the claims department. If they have any difficulties, they go to customer service, right? So coordinating between all those different departments, how people need to be transferred, moved around, and how blocks of work need to go from station to station. Pooled interdependence is when units operate with little interaction. Their output is pooled at the organization level, right? So we don't have much interaction, but we know what we're doing. We know how to do our job, we get it done, and we let the next person know and move on from there. Sequential interdependence is when the output of one unit becomes the input of another in a sequential fashion, right? So I've got the widget A, I slide it over to you. You didn't construct it. Now you have the widget B. You slide it over to her. Now she has the widget C, and she completes it and slides it over to the next person who has widget D process. Reciprocal interdependence is when activities flow both ways between units. So they go back and forth, right? So claims, get the claim done, goes to customer service, they let them know it's done. Customer service gets a claim in, they send it to claim completes the the claim and sends it back to customer service. So things can definitely in business go back and forth between departments. It's not always a linear or a straight line, as some may think. Bureaucracy. This is a model of an organization designed based on legitimate and formal system of authority, also known as red tape, right? You need to go through these different layers just to get an answer, right? So if it's very bureaucratic, has a lot of red tape, a lot of people that you need to go through to get your different stamps of approval. In some companies I've been at, it's been like that. Other companies I've been at, it's like, hey, Demetrius, we trust in you, we paying you a certain amount of money. We need for you to make that decision. And we won't really talk to you unless things go awry or if they go wrong, which is okay with me. So according to Weber, the ideal bureaucracy exhibits 5 basic characteristics. So number 1, he said the organization should adopt a distinct division of labor, and each position should be filled by an expert or a subject matter expert. Number 2, the organization should develop a consistent set of rules to ensure the task performance is uniform, right? So standardization, like in my company, it's like, hey, we're not standardized all across the United States. Let's get there. 3, the organization should establish a hierarchy of positions or offices that creates a chain of command from the top of the organization to the bottom. They should be able to escalate it up the chain of command, and it should also be escalated down the chain of command or de-escalated down the chain of command. Number 4, managers should conduct business in an impersonal way and maintain an appropriate social distance between themselves and their subordinates, right? So they shouldn't be too close, but it shouldn't be so far away from their subordinates. And number 5, employment and advancement in the organization should be based on technical expertise, and employees should be protected from arbitrary dismissal, right? So I shouldn't be able to make these decisions about not hiring you or just arbitrarily saying, that you got on my nerves today, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of you. Situational view of organizational design. So based on assumption that the optimal design for any given organization depends on a set of relevant situational factors, right? So you get an interview, they're going to ask you about certain situations, right? So what would you do in this situation? They'll give you situations very relative to the position, but some things are situational or behavior based. So you have situational based questions and your behavior based questions as well. Technology, right? So you all say, oh, you hear the word technology all the time, but what does it truly mean? So conversion process used to transform inputs into outputs, right? So I put something in the computer, in that Excel document, the output becomes the pivot table, right? Putting inputs and transforming them into outputs. So 3 forms of technology were identified by Woodward. So number 1 is unit or small batch technology. So the product is custom made to customer specifications or produced in small quantities, right? So you look at this thing called mass customization. You're going to do everything that the customer wants, right? So maybe it's like an exotic car place. You're going to put every single thing that they want. They want 5 TVs in there. That's exactly what you're going to do. Now, can you do that and send that, sell that to everybody? No, absolutely not. It's very specialized. Number 2, large batch or mass production technology. The product is manufactured in assembly line fashion by combining component parts into another part or finished product. And that's pretty self-explanatory. And number 3, continuous process technology. Raw materials are transformed into a finished product by a series of machine or process transformations, such as I want to make a table, take the wood, then you sand it, then you finish it, right? It may stop a few different places before it's actually ready to be sold in the stores. Mechanistic organization, similar to a bureaucratic model, most frequently found in stable environments, and then an organic organization is very flexible and informal model of organization design, most often found in unstable and unpredictable environments. So remember, organic is in unstable, unpredictable. Mechanistic, right, like it's very machine oriented, is found in very stable environments. So that covers the gamut between stable and unstable. Differentiation, extent to which the organization is broken down into subunits, right? So how many different subunits do we have? And are we integrated? So integration, degree to which the various subunits must work together in a coordinated fashion. Maybe they don't need to work together at all. And maybe they need to work hand in hand and in tandem in order to get pretty much anything done. Organizational size is the total number of full-time or full-time equivalent employees, right? So, if you see things with Affordable Care Act, you'll see that they're looking at FTEs, the full-time equivalent employees, as opposed to full-time employees, right? So if I have 10 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees that work 20 hours a week, then I have 11 full-time employees. So that's an additional one, the additional FTE. Organizational life cycle is a progression through which organizations evolve as they grow and mature. So all companies evolve, they grow, they mature. Hopefully, if they get that far, they grow, they mature. Then they currently decline, and they could end. Right? Some people think certain things are going to be around forever, but they're definitely not. Look at what happened with Circuit City and some of these other companies like Kmart, starting to decline and diminish. Functional design is based on the functional approach to departmentalization, right? So we'll go ahead and read about that one as well. So if you check out, this, just this chart, you see the CEOs obviously at the top, and then he has how many, 5 direct reports with the vice presidents, right? And then they have different reports that could be, the VP goes to director, and then director has reports that are the managers, and managers report, have a lot of people. It could be a supervisor, could be a team lead, but typically have a lot of people. So the U design is based on functional departmentalization. The small manufacturing firms use managers at the vice president level to coordinate activities within each functional area of each organization. Note that each functional area is dependent on the others, right? So you're dependent on your people that you work with. You want to make sure that you get the right thing done. So conglomerate design, I was going to skip that one, but no, you do need to know that, used by an organization made up of a set of unrelated businesses, right? So unrelated businesses, maybe, you want to take a different approach to that. So here it is, conglomerate or H form design is Samsung. So Samsung Electronics, for those of you who didn't know, a South Korean firm, used a conglomerate form of organization design. This design, which results from a strategy of unrelated diversification, is a complex one to manage, right? So it's a complex one to manage. Everybody can't do it. Managers find that comparing and integrating activities among the dissimilar operations are difficult. Companies may abandon this design for another approach, such as the M-form design, right? So, but I'm sure it does work for some companies. And this is M-form, the multidivisional design at Hilton Hotels. So Hilton Hotels uses a multidivisional approach to the organization. Although each unit operates with relative autonomy, right? So they're out there operating on their own. All units function in the same general market. So, just a little bit different. This is what you call a flat organization, where if it's, CEO and then everybody else just kind of reports up to him, that's a very flat organization. Now, divisional design is based on multiple businesses and related areas operating with a larger framework. So, they're all related. Maybe I make the car body and you make the tire. And then maybe we've decided to put our companies right next door to each other. So I can just wheel out the car and you throw on the tires, and now we've got this great product. The matrix design is based on two overlapping bases of departmentalization. So typically, it may not say it in here, but matrix design means that you report to a manager, then you also report to a project manager. So you report the managers here, project managers here. You report within there. But it's not very uncommon. But it's not something that a lot of people like. So here's a good, yeah, perfect. Here's a diagram of it. So here's the CEO, so vice president. So you would report in there, but if you're on project A, you're reporting to that project manager, project B, project C, and that's exactly how it works. There we go. Just get through that. Make sure you guys are definitely reading through the entire chapter. Team organization. So the approach to organization design that relies almost exclusively on project type teams, right? So we're going to formulate a great team. We're going to put it together. We're going to knock this project out of the park. Virtual organization is one that has little or no formal structure, right? Especially with people that telecommute. A lot of times they don't have that type of structure unless you set a meeting, say let's all Skype in and go in a video conference here, but they have little or no formal structure. Then you could have a learning organization. That's an organization that focuses on learning. I was at a company, $700,000. They got a grant from the state of California to do training seminars, and they did them. I took advantage of that, took a lot of the classes and marked them on my sheet, which was great. So a learning organization is one that works to facilitate the lifelong learning and personal development of all of its employees while continually transforming itself to respond to changing demands and needs. And I think that's, definitely what the company I currently work for definitely does. All right, so that's it for Management 2 and Chapter 6. We are now at the summary of learning outcomes and key points. I want you to continue going, read through the summary, read through all the additional things that they have at the end of the chapter. It will definitely help you in the long run. So make sure that you've completed all of your quizzes, your assignments. Make sure that you've read the chapter and watched this lecture. And as you do that, you'll do great when it comes to your quizzes and your tests. The summary doesn't take that long to do after you've read the whole chapter, and you kind of read the summary. It says, okay, it clicks, and maybe there are a couple things that I missed, and I say, okay, that's a good thing. So I want you to do well this week, as I want you to do well every other week, and enjoy the warm weather as always, and always have a good day and a great week.